change to a percentage is what we're looking at in this video. It's split into 3 parts. We're going to start off by looking at questions with a calculator, then worded questions with a calculator, and then finally looking at questions without a calculator. So the way my videos work, I'm going to do the example on the left, which is I do. You are then going to press pause and have a go at the example on the right, which is you do. And the bottom of the slide tells us that, for example, this is. So this is with a calculator. We've been asked to express the following as a percentage to one decimal place. So 15 out of 45, we can write that as a fraction like this and just times it by 100. And that is all you need to do to get this to a percentage. So if I use my calculator and I do that, I get an answer of 33 and I need to round it to one decimal place. So that will be 33.3%. Okay. So hopefully you've pressed pause and now to go at the example on the right. So we're going to write that as a fraction and we're going to times that fraction by 100. Now if I use my calculator, 23, divide that by 30, times that by 100, I end up with 76.7% to one decimal place. So here's some practice questions. Press pause and have a go. Here are the answers. Mark your work. Now moving on, we are now looking at worded questions. So Ben sat a test. He got 17 out of 50. What was his percentage mark to one decimal place? So he got 17 out of 50. We can write that as a fraction. Times that by 100. And that just becomes 17 out of 50. If I type that in my calculator, that is 34%. In fact, it says to one decimal place. So I would write that as 34.0% to one decimal place. So hopefully you've pressed pause and now to go at the example on the right. So what percentage of the class are boys? So as a fraction, that will be 17 divided by, now careful here, the bottom is going to be the total. So in total, how many people are there in the class? So the total is going to be 17 plus 6, okay? That will be the total. So we're going to divide 17 by the total, and that would give us, and times that by 100, forgot that, which gives us 73.9% to one decimal place. So here's some practice questions. Press pause and have a go. Here are the answers. Mark your work. Moving on, we are now looking at questions with no calculator. So if you have got a calculator, please put it away. I'm not going to be using it now. So 15 out of 100 can be written like this. Now percentage, the word percent just means out of 100. So this as a percentage is 15%. Okay, nice and easy here. Again here, 23, because it's out of 100, we know as a percentage, it's just going to be 23%. If the fraction is out of 100, you just copy the number at the top. Now moving on, this is a bit different because the fraction is not out of 100. So what you need to do is, how can I turn this into 100? Well, I can times this by 2. Well, whatever you do to the top, you have to do the bottom. So if I times the top and bottom by 2, if I grab my pen, if I times this by 2 and times this by 2, that now becomes 80 over 100. And there's your answer. So as a percentage, this is 80%. You just need to get the fraction out of 100. Okay, so again, hopefully you press pause now to go at this. So that's 30 over 50 times the top and bottom by 2. That's 60 over 100. Now that it's over 100, we know the percentage is 60% because percent just means out of 100. So again, we need to get this to out of 100. So times the bottom by 5 times the top by 5. So that means at the bottom, we now have 100, top becomes 60. So this is 60%. And again, hopefully you've pressed pause and now to go at this. So again, if I times the bottom by 5, that gets me to 100. So I have to do the same at the top. And then as a percentage, that is just 35%. Now moving on. So this one's a little bit trickier. Now it's not easy to go from 40 to 100. So instead of what we can do is we can half this, and you'll see why in a second. So if I half the top and bottom, I'm now at 20 because I know how to go from 20 to 100. It's going to be a whole number. I can just multiply the top and bottom by 5. Okay, so there's 2 steps involved in this. So that's now 50 over 100. And you can see that is 50%. And you probably read this and you could probably tell it's 50% straight away. But it's important that you can do it like this because it's not always going to be as clear. So again, we have 30 over 40. The question is, well, how do I get to 100 at the bottom? Well, I divide the top and bottom by 2 because that can get me to 20. And from here, it's easier to get to 100. So times the top and bottom by 5. And that gets me to 100. And then, well, what is 15 times 5? That's 75. So the answer is 75 out of 100, which means it's 75%. Now, out of 30, so now, again, going from 30 to 100, we're going to have to multiply by some decimal. Can we make our lives easy? Yes, we can. If I divide the top and bottom by 3, that gets me to 10. And that gets me to 4. Now it's easy to get to 100. I just need to times the top and bottom by 10. So the answer here is 40%. So again, 27 out of 30. The question you ask yourself is, well, how do I get the bottom to 100? Well, it's probably easy if I divide them both by 3 to start with. And then if I times them both by 10 now, that gets me to 90 out of 100. Okay, so just for me to write that down. So what I've done is I've divided the top and bottom by 3, and then I've times the top and bottom by 10. And now, because it's out of 100, I know as a percentage, it's just going to be 90%. So here's some practice questions for you to have a go at. Press pause and have a go. Here are the answers, mark your work. Now, if you would like a full worksheet on this, I've got it linked down in the comments below. And if you found this video useful, I've got loads of other content like this over on my channel. Do check it out.